everyone. For math today, we are starting a brand new unit on graphing and on maps. I hope that you are excited for this new unit and that you enjoy this new unit because I always think that this is a really fun unit to do. So let's get started right away. Today we're going to learn about Venn diagrams. Now, let's talk about what that even is. What is a Venn diagram? A Venn diagram are circles that overlap that will tell us how things are the same or how they are different. So it helps us organize kind of some ideas about how things can be the same and how things can be different. So when you are looking at Venn diagrams, you need to have at least two things or two topics that you are trying to compare, see how they are the same and see how they are different. Now, my two things are pretzels and chips. What are some things you think about when you think about a pretzel? What are some things that you know about pretzels, how they taste, what they look like? Anything else you just think about when you're thinking about pretzels? And what are some things you think about when you think about chips? What are some things you know about chips? What are some things that you have tasted about chips, that you see about chips? These types of things, right? So let's start with the pretzel. When I think about a pretzel, I think that they are nice and salty. They're a salty snack. They're also a snack, okay? I also think that they usually just come in like two shapes. They're usually like twisted like this, or they're sticks. They're also really only have one flavor. It's just pretzel, right? Salty. And when I think about a chip, I think about lots of different things. Chips can be huge. Pretzels can be pretty big too. They can be small like this, and also you can have them huge. But when I think about chips, I think I have had some pretty big potato chips in my life, but I've also had very small ones. You can get lots of crumbs at the bottom of the bag. And they can be tons of different flavors. So sometimes they can be salty. Sometimes they can even be like a little bit spicy sometimes, depending on the type of chips that you have. Now that I've kind of described my two things, I want to think about the Venn diagram that I have. So a Venn diagram kind of helps us organize information, and so do all of the different graphs that we're going to learn about as well. Maybe that's part of why I like graphing so much. It helps us organize our thoughts and our ideas. So to draw a Venn diagram, we need to make sure that we have two circles, but that these two circles overlap and that there's a section where we can write some things that are the same. Now, if we don't have that and we just have two circles on a page, we don't actually have a Venn diagram. We just have two circles on a page. We need to make sure that we have this middle section that will help us organize some of those thoughts, okay? So let's get started. Our first thing was a pretzel. So I'm going to put my pretzel here on this side, and I'm going to put my potato chip here on this side. We had different ways that we could describe the potato chips and different ways that we could describe the pretzels. What I want to do to start off our Venn diagram is think about the ways that they are the same, okay? So we know that when we have potato chips and when we have pretzels that they are a treat, right? So something that is the same about them is that they are a treat. So we would put that information in the middle of our Venn diagram. When we taste pretzels or we taste potato chips, we know that they are salty. Often they are very salty. Okay? And we know that we can have some very big and some very small potato chips and pretzels, okay? I've seen pretzels that are like this big before. which is something that's different than potato chips. We'll talk about that in a second. But the size can be different sizes. That's something that's the same about them. Not all pretzels are the same size. Not all pretzels are the same shape either, right? So they can be different sizes and shapes. Squeeze that last little bit in there. Okay, different sizes and shapes. Now, I want to think about just the pretzel for a second. Our first item, pretzels. What is something about pretzels that is not the same as potato chips? Now, pretzels really only come in one flavor, right? It's pretzels. So it has one flavor. Something else, I'm not sure if you've ever seen this before or had this before, but pretzels can either be hard and crunchy, or you can have a pretzel that's soft, right? Has anyone ever had a soft pretzel before? I have, and when it's nice and warm, it is delicious. It's so yummy, okay? So they can be hard or soft. That's something that's different, because if you had a soft potato chip, you'd think it's just soggy. That's kind of gross, right? Hard or soft. Maybe if we had time, we could think about some other ways that pretzels are different than potato chips. But let's move on to the potato chip for now. Now, the potato chip is different than a pretzel. We know that it's different because it's not the exact same thing. But how is a potato chip different? A potato chip can come in tons of different flavors. It can come in just regular flavor, kind of salty. You could have salt and vinegar. You could have ketchup. You could have barbecue. There's so many different flavors. There's a whole aisle of different types of chips at the grocery store. So there are lots and lots of flavors. As well. And one more thing that is different than potato chips compared to a pretzel is that it is made out of potatoes. Pretzels are not made out of potatoes. Only potato chips are. So it's made from potatoes. That's another way that it's different. There are a couple of different things that I want to tell you about Venn diagrams that are kind of just interesting information before we take a look at our work for today. So the first thing is that Venn diagrams can actually be used to describe more than just two things. So we could describe more than two things by adding more circles to our Venn diagrams. If we wanted to compare three different things, we could do that as long as we have a middle section where they all overlap again. I'll show you real quick what that might look like. If we were to have a Venn diagram, we would compare thing 1 with thing 2 and thing 3. So here, this section would have things that are unique about thing 1. In this section, we have things that are unique about thing 2. But in this section, where just these two connect, we would have things that are the same about thing 1 and thing 2. The same thing goes for thing 3. We could have a section where we compare thing 2 and thing 3, and a section where we can compare thing 1 and thing 3. And in the very middle here, this section here, we would compare thing 1, thing 2, and all three things together, okay? The next thing is about why Venn diagrams are even called a Venn diagram and not like a circle diagram or something else instead. There was a man a very long time ago, like in the 1800s, who started using this to help himself organize his information that he had. So he invented he made up the Venn diagram, and his name was John Venn. So he didn't actually come up with the name himself. It was just after he started using them, when other people started using them, they called it after him. So they called it a Venn diagram because he's the one that made them up. Okay. Now what I would like you to do is open up your textbook to our very brand new unit, all the way to page 285. So we're going to do 2 pages today, page 285 and 286. On page 285, you have these 2 circles. You have a yellow circle and a blue circle. So that would be like thing 1 and thing 2. And the part in the middle, the green section, is what would be the same about thing 1 and thing 2. Okay, this just shows what it looks like. It would look like you don't have to do anything for it here. Okay, on the bottom here, we have different types of seashells here. Now, Jada and Justin, they kind of maybe went exploring at the beach and they collected all kinds of different seashells. What I want you to do is circle the shells that would go in the middle section. So that means look at Jada's shells, look at Justin's shells, circle the ones that are the same in Jada and Justin's collections. Okay, then you're going to turn the page, and here we have a couple of letters. Now, what we're doing to compare the letters is we're saying what letters have curves in it and what letters have lines in it. Okay, so C is just curves. There's no lines in C. Same with O. It's just curves, no lines. V and L are just lines, straight lines, no curves in those letters. But B, it has a line and also it has a curve, so it goes right in the middle. I want you to take a look at these letters here, P, X, and S, and write them in the Venn diagram where you think they belong. So does P have just curves, just lines, or is it something in the middle? Is it both curves and lines? You decide and write these letters in the Venn diagram somewhere. Now on the bottom here, we have 2 circles. Something we should get used to is labeling our Venn diagrams. So this one is labeled A, part A, and this one's labeled B. Okay, so, and we could say M is for the middle, right? So here we have hard items in circle A, and in circle B we have yellow items, just yellow. Okay, but in the middle is where we would put items that are hard and yellow. We have 4 different items here. I want you to put an A, a B, or an M on the line if you think that this item belongs in circle A, hard items only. If you think it belongs in circle B, yellow items only. Or if you think it belongs in the middle, hard and yellow items. So you're going to do the same for all 4 items, and then you're done your work for today, and tomorrow we look at some new different types of graphs. See you later.